here. Imagine this green apple on my hand to be the planet, the Earth. It has a thin sliver of plastic around it, and as you may have guessed, it represents the atmosphere upon which all of life depends. And this fine blanket maintains the Earth's temperature just the way Goldilocks would like it. Not too hot, not too cold. When you look up at the sky, it looks really vast. But in reality, it's so delicate and so vulnerable that we humans are changing it dramatically. We are pumping in tons and tons of greenhouse gases into it and making the planet hotter and hotter. Let's just say we're cooking the apple. If you've ever had fever, can you imagine your body to be 4 or even 6 degrees warmer? Would you even do that to yourself? I mean, deliberately go into coma? It's no different for the planet. We are collectively allowing the world to become 4, 6, or even 10 degrees warmer by the end of the century, when we really should stay within a 2 degrees Celsius temperature rise. That, by the way, was my icebreaker, global warming. Let me now cut a bit of this apple. I'm going to take off about 1/4. It's a bit tougher than I thought. I've got roughly 3/4 of the apple. And this represents our oceans. And our oceans absorb all the extra carbon dioxide from the air. And as a result, they're becoming increasingly acidic. So yeah, we're cooking the apple. We're also making it sour. The result of which is that we're losing coral reefs. They're becoming as white as chalk, and they're dying out. And thousands of species that depend on coral reefs are also dying out. And we're taking off so much fish from the oceans that we won't have any seafood in a couple of decades. If I may ask, how many of you use your swimming pool in your condo or local community center? Please raise your hands. Well, that's most of you. Would you even dream of dumping your plastic waste or some horrendous chemicals into it? Oh, I see most of you shaking your heads. Of course not. But that's exactly what we're doing to the oceans. The other day, I was standing at a bus stop in Kallang, and the lady in front of me tossed a cigarette butt into the drains. She was probably expecting it to go away somehow. In our planet, there is no way. Everything simply moves to another place, and sometimes in another form. Cigarette butts are the top item of litter on Singapore beaches. And plastic foam constitute most of the debris, some of which, I'm pretty sure, travel far to the Atlantic Ocean, from our little red dot, which is Singapore, to the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, where we have huge floating garbage patches of plastic. I'm going to cut a bit more of this apple now. I've got 1/4 left. I'm going to cut that into half. This represents land where it's really hard for people to live, like the Arctic, Antarctica, mountains, canyons, deserts, lakes, and swamps. And we've got the remaining 1/4. And I'm going to cut that into 4 equal parts. Right? This represents land where it's really wet to grow crops. This is land where it's too poor in nutrients and too rocky. And this represents land where it's way too hot to grow anything. So we've got this tiny bit of land, which represents 3% of the Earth's surface area. And if I were to take off the peel, this tiny peel represents all the Earth's topsoil, which is available to feed 7 billion people. and it has to feed a potential 9 billion people by 2050. And we're rapidly losing this topsoil at 10 times the rate it takes to replenish it. And whatever we pour onto this topsoil, be it toxic waste, pesticides, or fertilizer, ultimately enters our bodies and makes it too poor for future use. So, we're cooking the apple, we're souring it, and we're skinning it alive. And finally, trashing it. And it's not as if we have a bowl of apples. We've only got one planet. So what do we do now? I'm sure some of you are thinking, thank you very much, Bhavani. That was a nice geography lesson. But my life is way too removed from that. I'm way too busy making a living, way too busy raising a family, way too busy managing my colleagues at work, and way too busy being busy. Maybe some of you feel, oh, Bhavani, you're a tree hugger. This is what you love to do. So, this ain't for me. And maybe some of you feel, I do want to help, but I don't know where to start. Well, I didn't know where to start either till a couple of years ago. And I certainly was too busy being busy for most of my life. And I wasn't always a greenie. In fact, when I first came to Singapore, did you know what I desperately wanted to become? A banker. I was so excited. Singapore is a financial hub. I came here about 10 years ago. And I thought it'd be so glamorous, so cool, so intellectual to be a banker. And guess what I finally became? A volunteer rainforest guide at the Singapore Botanic Gardens. And quite by accident. But it made me look at the world with a completely new pair of lenses. And it shocked me to the core that we were not just losing rainforests, we were losing a hell of a lot of things. And no one at that time seemed to talk or care much about it. But it still took me a while to decide which path to take. But in 2008, I finally made the call. And I became a couple of things eventually. I became a green blogger, an environmental advocate, a sustainability trainer and speaker, and a green entrepreneur. And of course, I had less money in my pocket than if I'd become a banker, but more richness than I could ever have imagined. Suffice it to say that the last 5 years have been the happiest in my life. Happy? Did I just say happy? What's happiness got to do with this, do you ask? You see, we and the planet, we're not separate. We're deeply, deeply connected. Everything that we do to ourselves has an impact on the world. Every choice we make, everything we buy, wear, and do has an impact on the people in it, on the millions of species, the air, the oceans, and soil. And the way we care, when we care for the people, the plants and animals in it, in turn, we are taken care of. And the way we choose to live, to laugh, and to care affects our happiness in return. Kofi Annan once said something that resonated with me powerfully. Our biggest challenge this new century is to take an idea that seems abstract, sustainable development, and turn it into a reality for all the world's people. That is the challenge that I've humbly taken up. In many ways, that's my life purpose and mission. How do we make sustainability a reality for all of us? How do we make happiness a reality for all of us? I have a formula which I call sustainable happiness. How to make our planet and ourselves happy. And I'm going to offer a few cue letters for you to remember it. And I'm sure it's quite familiar to you by now. A-P-P-L-E. A, for acquire less. Buying more stuff doesn't make us happy, neither does comparing with others. Less stuff actually means less stuff is liberating. It means more space, more time, more freedom, more peace of mind, and it puts less pressure on the resources of the planet. And acquiring less is an attitude of gratitude because we feel content and fulfilled with what we have. Do you want to know a way to pay for your health care without costing a dime? Push away synthetic chemicals, because they accumulate in our bodies, causing cancers and allergy. And whenever you walk down the supermarket shelves, pay attention to the labels. You know, the tiny bit at the back of the packages. As Michael Pollan said, if your grandma doesn't understand the ingredient, it's best avoided. P for pay it forward. Let's spread kindness to those around us and to those who have far less than us. We also pay it forward by making conscious choices, like eating less industrially farmed meat, or buying furniture or paper that don't destroy rainforests, or buying stuff made by people who are treated fairly. L for learn from nature, because nature is a wonderful teacher. She inspires, she energizes. And children and adults are spending less and less time outdoors because they're hooked to their digital devices. We only care for what we learn to love. So what do we want to love? The real apple or the fake apple? E, exercise your body and mind. Let's use our 2 feet more often. Walking and cycling are great physical exercises instead of using 4 wheels all the time. Gardening is a great exercise. Now, I can't grow apples in Singapore, but here are some of the things I grow on my 5th floor terrace garden. Banana, sugarcane, and a variety of herbs and greens. And gardening is great for the brain. It reduces your stress hormones and increases your zest for life. Yay! And what about the mind? Regular meditation is really the key to mindfulness. It increases our compassion and our awareness that we all belong to one big community where we are interconnected and interdependent. So here's my question to all of you. What kind of an apple would you like to leave for future generations? One like this, rotten and unable to renew itself? Or one like this, a healthy apple, or a sustainably happy apple? Thank you.